JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is such a phenomenon, extending beyond the general anime community to the periphery of the mainstream, that even as a person who hasn't kept up with the currently running anime in like more than a decade, I'm always aware when something new happens in the JoJo verse. And one such thing happened recently when I guess Netflix released the first part of a new and apparently long awaited season. They also announced the next part will be coming out in the fall, as in the fall of 2026. And the online fan reaction was absolutely unhinged. Now, much like a demon trying to cross the threshold of a church, my skin starts to sizzle and burn whenever I try to access the platform formerly known as Twitter, which is why I don't have any of them on screen right now because holy cow, I can't go back through every segment of every channel I consume to find exactly who talked about it when. And as I just mentioned, I cannot use the platform, so you'll just have to trust me or go find them for yourself later if you're willing to brave the wasteland of awful that is X. The sentiments seem to center around this was the most hyped season and they ruined it by only releasing the first part. And worse, honestly, I wish they never even released the first part if they aren't going to release the next part until fall.
You ever wish you could reach through the screen and just slap someone right in the brain? That right there is the exact same flavor of entitlement that we used to ruthlessly bully teenage girls for on reality shows. You know, when like their parents would buy them a whole car for their birthday, but then they would burst into tears because it wasn't the right color. Yeah, I'm guessing that all these people on the internet, mainly guys, if I'm being honest, who are complaining so much about this whole JoJo thing, I bet you they don't consider themselves anything close to those teenage girls on My Super Sweet 16, but they are, in fact, indistinguishable.
Stop it. Mom, you did it on purpose. He said that you chose that.
Alexa, yes, I did choose that, okay? Sometimes there are things that I need to do. Shut up.
I'm going to try to keep myself from getting too heated about it, but god damn, what on earth gave them the idea that they're entitled to anything, let alone a piece of artwork like an animated show, which requires the kind of love, time, and energy I imagine these Neanderthals have never once considered to create, especially if you want it to be any good? Or would they rather have slop that looks bad and makes no sense for the sake of getting it faster? Just because you love something doesn't mean you get more of it for as long as you want it. But even in saying that, I have to ask if these people actually do love these things, or if they're just desperate to consume anything they enjoy as fast as possible and be done with it, like a kid whose parents keep giving them candy and they eat it so fast they barely even taste it, let alone appreciate it. If you're someone who would say, I wish you'd never release part one if you were going to make me wait for part two, would you really rather have nothing than wait a little while? Jesus fuck, and I thought I got mad about people who felt entitled to just like plot developments and outcomes of stories and franchises they like. For example, Star Wars, which I feel is at the top of my mind because regardless of if I agree with the criticisms leveled at the sequel movies or not, the blunt truth is that no matter how much you love something, no matter how long you've loved it, no matter if you think you're right about story direction or developments, no piece of content you consume belongs to you. You're welcome to be and stay mad about it, but what does that even accomplish for you? Why can't you just be grateful someone created something you really connected with?
Well, actually, to be perfectly honest with you, I too struggle sometimes with feeling the gratitude that I know somebody deserves for giving me content that I love and that I can share with people or have for my personal comfort. And yeah, of course, I'm going to feel upset when I have to go a long time missing something that I really love. I think that's just a natural human feeling. Of course, the difference between me and the jerks on the internet making me mad is that I am not making my feelings public because I understand that they are crummy and unfair. But like I said, they are human. So I don't think I want to invalidate the feeling that we have. I don't think any feeling should be immediately invalidated. At the same time, I don't think it's good to just hold on to shitty feelings either. Like, I hate having a bad feeling and then like knowing that it's bad and then trying to pretend like it never happened. Even though I know the instinct is like when we have a bad feeling to be like, ew, get away from me. I'm not supposed to feel that. Ew.
Ugh. Brother, ugh.
I believe in examining the ugly parts of yourself because that's one of the best and fastest paths to growing as a person. Man, as a species, we have absolutely failed at the definition and emphasis of the word exercise because your brain needs just as much exercise as your body. The way you exercise your brain is by confronting things like uncomfortable feelings, biases, echo chambers, internalized isms,
and so on, and so on, and so on, etc.
In my opinion, one of the things that's holding people back from becoming more mature and perhaps more well-rounded as people is the inability to accept nuance.
I bring it up because binary systems, black and white, right and wrong, left and right, are very comfortable for our brains because we naturally want to be able to sort everything into a box. That's part of our chimp lizard brain, it's evolution. Unfortunately, almost nothing about the human experience is as simple as we'd like it to be, and I don't think that's news. Now, I don't need to go through the points that 1,000 think pieces about click-based internet culture and the benefits of dividing people into teams have already said before me. The TLDR is that everything boils down to money.
And like, obviously, this wasn't invented by internet culture. Before this, we had commercials on TV or ads in magazines that used fear-based preying on, things like bad breath, stinky armpits, bulging tummies, all of those things that, use our insecurities to force us to consume products. And before then, there was snake oil salesmen at traveling markets doing the exact same thing.
What the internet changed, however, was how accessible every piece of information would become, from being limited to just a city or a single television channel or a run of magazines you could just avoid buying, to having every person's business at the tip of your fingers.
But please don't get me wrong. I am absolutely not here to wag my finger at social media and say that technology has been a bad thing. Of course not. I'm here to roll with the punches of technology. I love the advancements and progressions of society that have come with technological advancements.
Dad, good to see you. Still committing to the ape body, I see.
The ape uprising is coming, Haley, and I'll be ready when it does.
Nuance is the thing that allows us to accept when there are cases in which we have to accept the bad with the good, because ultimately 2 steps forward and 1 step back is still 1 step forward. Okay, seriously, I am sorry for going on so much. It's just, I do think it's really important to take in the broader context of the current world that we live in when we're examining things like feelings and behaviors, because if we want to address them, we have to understand them, and to understand anything is to put it in context. So, I want to examine the feeling of entitlement that people have towards content and content creators. And no, I'm not going to be talking about parasocial relationships right now. That is a word that has been so much talked to death recently. I fear that the phrase has lost all meaning. I also want to express my opinion on how we can take these perfectly natural, flawed but perfectly natural human emotions and apply nuance in a way that turns things more positive for both us and the creators.
Let's talk about what I have coined, and if someone else has already come up with this name, shush, no they didn't, just let me have this one, the Patron Paradox.
I am an advocate of always paying artists and also paying artists more money than they're currently making. I also have talked a lot about how I'd like to bring back the Victorian practice of patronage, as in when super rich people like house an artist, like give them a guest suite or whatever, and then just pay them a salary to make art every day like it's a job, because it literally is. So you might think that I would have nothing but positive feelings towards something like Patreon because it's more or less created a modern day version of what I just described, kind of. And in the perfect world where my brain always operates on logic, that would absolutely be the case. But sadly, this is not that world, and my brain happens to be a bit of a lemon that I frequently wish I could trade in for a new one. So, and trust me, I am much better at reining in my emotions than I used to be. However, for whatever reason, when I get a strong emotion, be that sadness or anger or whatever, oftentimes the doors to the logic chamber just slam shut in some kind of panic protocol and just become totally inaccessible.
So I'll just say upfront that I am objectively glad something like Patreon exists. I mean, I don't love that they take a big cut, but with the way the digital world is supported, there are operating costs for any platform, so I don't really know if the answer is there. But anyway, in response, you might ask, well then, what's the problem here? Well, it's complicated. I think we all need to first acknowledge that it sounds and feels and perhaps actually is very entitled to say you want more content from anyone. When people demand that an artist gives them more, especially for free, I'm going to get to the whole direct indirect payment thing later, just stick with me. That feels icky, regardless of how much you love an artist's work, no matter how much it emotionally affected you. We can probably agree that it seems greedy to demand more. After all, we were taught from childhood not to be greedy, especially in cases when someone is being nice enough to share something of theirs with you.
Because ultimately, that is what it boils down to. Anything created by an artist belongs to them, and it's really a kindness that they share it, even in exchange for financial support. Where this whole video idea started was me being frustrated and struggling with my frustration and trying to understand what was happening when I or a group of people, whoever, was financially supporting a creator, giving them money. And it seemed like the more patrons they got, the less content they made. But before I address that, let's just quickly establish how money works. Put down the pitchforks. I don't think you're dumb. I know we're all adults here. We know what money is and how it works generally. But just stick with me here, because paying for art, especially in the online world, is weirdly counterintuitive.
The way money functions in our society with this system is that it's used almost exclusively in a forwards direction. What I mean by that is, in general, you must pay for something before you're allowed to receive or use it. You pay for software before you can download it. You pay for items online before they're shipped. You mostly pay for food before you're allowed to eat it. Even when it comes to something like rent, you pay it at the beginning of the month to continue living in the space. That's what I mean by money typically only goes forward.
Online content works a really different way.
When we think of the creators on Patreon taking money from their fans, we think of supporting them, and in exchange we get bonus exclusive content, right? I'd like to ask you to consider that this isn't the case. Well, it is in a literal sense, but try to separate yourself from the way the platform of Patreon functions with tiers and perks, and try to just think of fans giving an artist, a creator, money just in order to support them.
It's very easy to see how frustration and resentment could fester inside fans, especially fans who have been there from the beginning. And especially when you consider the way that we've been conditioned to expect money to work. Extending empathy to everyone out there, including myself, who has had these kinds of feelings. I understand what it's like when you love somebody so much that you want to financially support them and help them get better equipment and better living conditions and all kinds of, upgraded lifestyle things because you care about them and you want to support them. But then oddly, you go from getting pieces of content once a week, once a month, to once every 3 months, and sometimes like once a year. The truth is, it feels bad.
We watch as the subscriber count, the number of patrons and YouTube members goes up and up and up, but the number of times that content is released goes down and down and down. You might feel like the decision to start paying the artist for the very content that made you set up regular payments in the first place has actually caused you to receive less of it. Here's where I ask you to consider that this isn't the case again.
Where online content differs from most products and services that we pay for is that a lot of creators are forced to basically give away their art, their content for free. And yes, don't worry, I am going to address things like indirect payment when we do like ads and stuff in the next section. So just hang on a moment. For many years before it can actually become a viable full-time job. This is especially true of people making video content on YouTube. And to be perfectly transparent with you, those types of creators are where this whole thought process started. The Patron Paradox is the space that exists between the way our brains are conditioned to expect things, especially things we pay for, and the legitimate love that we have for creators and artists and the true desire to support them.
Some creators are straight up superhuman, even if they'd never describe themselves that way, and still manage to release 1 to 2 hour strong video essays every 3 months or so, despite also spending time diversifying their brand into amazing, high quality merchandise, a recently released book, and a brand new webcomic.
That's right, John. I'm talking about you.
Others, however, will go over a year without releasing anything on their public channel. And hey, I'm not trying to criticize the very real time it takes to make high quality, impactful video essays. I mean, my channel has just been talking about movies so far. I doubt I'll ever make any 4 hour magnum opuses that alter the landscape of YouTube video essayists or expose mega corporations for their sketchy behavior, especially when it comes to real research that is actually verified and makes a real difference. And I'll tell you right now, editing the video probably takes me twice as long as writing the essay and filming it combined. So, without getting lost in the weeds any more than I surely already have, now that I've told you what the Patron Paradox is and pointed out all these key pieces of context and the nuanced way money works in this specific case, what am I suggesting to make us feel better in these really conflicted moments? Well,
What if you could reframe the way that you think about payment to an artist as not being for the work that they're creating right now? What if you considered that when you sign up to something like Patreon or YouTube channel memberships, What you're actually paying for is all the content that you've enjoyed up until now.
You're giving them back pay for the years they had to spend not making a livable wage, for the hours they spent building their brand behind the scenes, for keeping up in the face of overwhelming odds, and reaching a point of popularity where something like a Patreon is even viable. You're ensuring they continue to produce authentic art in the era of slop.
The way that everything is trying to be fast and bad these days, like as fast as possible, who cares about quality? The here damn generation of creation, apparently, at least from the industrial side of things. It does sort of explain how people who don't necessarily always think critically could come to have this desire slash expectation slash entitlement to want things faster and faster and faster and faster.
The point is, I know how to temper my expectations based on what I know about making a good video or any other good piece of art. I'm an author, but I have lots of friends in the art world with all different mediums. So believe me when I say I also understand the labor of love and the terror of mental blocks that come with producing meaningful content. I also understand truly loving someone means loving them through more than just the very best of times.
Or for more than just your personal favorite version of them.
I said I would come back to it, so finally, here we are. The subject of supporting creators without directly giving them money via something like Patreon, channel memberships, merch, tickets to live shows, etc., etc. Or, as I called it earlier, indirect payment. For anyone not in the know, YouTube allows creators to begin earning a share from ads inside the videos. These are often referred to as mid rolls because they roll, aka play, in the middle of videos once the channel reaches 1,000 subscribers. To summarize it as simply as possible, the businesses make their ads, then pay YouTube to put those ads on the right videos. And by that I mean the videos where the audiences who are most likely to purchase from that ad will be. Then YouTube takes that money from those businesses and pays out a portion to the creators if they reach the earning threshold.
1/4 portion.
So in this system, you're technically always financially supporting a creator as long as they've qualified for payment. Just by watching their videos, and you don't have to give them a single dollar of your own.
I bring this up because obviously it changes the nature of patronage. Yes, you are still technically allowing a creator to get paid by just putting your eyes on them, and I don't want to discount that kind of support at all because it's literally how anyone gets to the point of setting up a Patreon. The reason I'm bothering to bring this up is because while I do think anyone can experience the feelings I'm describing, I have to also acknowledge the difference between a person who passively watches and allows the creator to get paid by YouTube and or their sponsors, and a person who actively puts their money directly into the creator's pocket out of enjoying their content that much. It's not a competition, so please don't take it that way. I just want to make myself clear and validate the fans who are doing a lot by subscribing, liking, watching every video, etc. I'm just trying to point out that when people are part of the direct transaction, they get. I don't want to say everyone becomes entitled because that's obviously not the case, but you literally do have an investment in the outcome.
Clear as mud? Okay, good.
So, what's the conclusion to draw from all this?
I mean, obviously, I can't tell you how to feel about anything. And I am well aware that if you're unhappy about something, reframing it in a more positive way doesn't always help make it feel better. These kinds of subjects are pretty much always going to be up to the individual and their subjective feelings towards each and every creator. Not to mention how there actually are consequences in the world for being rude or acting super entitled about exactly how much and when a creator gives you their content.
Now, as a person with several neural divergences, I can tell you that I have a really hard time finding the middle ground of emotions, but I hope there are plenty of you out there who don't have to suffer the Newton's cradle of emotional management that I do, and can find the comfortable compromise without having to spend weeks or months in a miserable state of polarization.
Because of course you're allowed to have expectations of certain things. Of course. You just also need to be consistently aware and checking yourself about if you are managing and or mitigating those expectations.
It's harder for art because works of art are so insanely subjective. I know something like cooking can also be incredibly subjective when it comes to tastes, but to simplify, let's think of it like this. When you go to a fast food restaurant, you pay a smaller amount of money for the food, and you expect a smaller amount of satisfaction, quality, taste, whatever. In return, when you go to a high class restaurant, you pay a larger amount of money for the food and you expect a larger amount of satisfaction, quality, taste, etc. So if you struggle to grasp how you're supposed to meter your expectations, start there.
This is obviously a metaphor. It's not 1-1.
While I do think we're responsible for keeping our base lizard brain instincts in check, it's no fault of our own that humans are wired to pick up on patterns and will begin to follow them, even subconsciously. We have all had some boomer relative go on about impatience and how long things used to take, and while I think I get where they're coming from, again, the blunt truth is that the faster and faster things become accessible to us, the more we'll expect them to come faster, or at least at the same rate. When things slow down, people do not react well. Just look at the example of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure I brought up at the very beginning of this video. Fans were only willing to wait if they could get all of it at once, and when that doesn't happen, they flip the table. Now no one can eat the cake.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna go build my own theme park with blackjack and hookers.
Well, I'm obviously not sure if we can ever fully correct for what is just human behavior. Like I said, we're just animals. I do think that there is a lot of value in trying to just bring more positivity and creating a more supportive environment for yourself and for everyone around you. And that is especially true for all the creators who are so wonderful as to share their creations with us, those things that we can enjoy and emotionally connect with that really just make life worth it, right? Life is nothing without art. We need to be grateful for those who give it to us.